So I'm chatting with Dwarr. He's the one-man show behind the heavy metal project Dwarr. I'm really excited about this one. It was a lot of fun. Duane shares a lot of great stories. And for those of you who are not familiar with Dwarr, it's really incredible music. It's just emotionally raw, brutal, moody, and has become quite a bit of a cult favorite. He had actually re-released a couple of the albums, his early 80s albums with Drag City, and then went on tour with Jennifer Harama's band Black Bananas. So he talks a little bit about that, and we discuss his testimony, dark Christian music, Spanish hymns, and what's next for him in the Dwarr project. Hey, thanks for making the time. Sorry, I have Starlink and went out, and so I had to run off to the parking lot of a coffee shop, still in their Wi-Fi.
Something weird going on that my phone never gives me problems loading onto AOL, my email, and I couldn't get in. I mean, said something weird's going on here. This must be important.
It's a spiritual warfare. Yeah, well, hopefully, and it also started raining out here, so hopefully it doesn't pick up again. I don't want to have it caught in my audio, but we'll make it work. So, what's going on these days? Are you still making music?
In reality, no, uh, no, but I'm going through some major changes right now, and it seems like I'm moving into a new season of life here, and a long season is coming to an end. And I feel like the Lord wants me to do something going forward. And I'm really praying hard. He saved my life back in January. I thought I was kind of at the end of the road. I'm 65 now. I'm still healthy as a horse, man. I work out, 3 or 4 times a week. I can still bench 250. But I just have been feeling bad for over a year. I've been sick 6 weeks, and I just felt like I was at the end of the road. And January 3rd, man, the Lord saved my life. It was a 5-month plan that culminated in front of a traffic camera. And God hit me in the head with a hammer and woke me up. And I immediately made some changes. And I really believe He saved my life on that day, January 3rd. And I've made some changes. And I really believe He's got something else for me to do.
Nice.
So I'm praying hard to get guidance, man. What is it? Because whatever it is, I'll do it.
Amen. That's
But
cool.
we have been, my daughter, man, my daughter's 17, man, and she's a very talented keyboardist, man. I started her playing the keyboards, she's probably 4 or 5 years old. Shot her first music video when she was 4. And we actually wrote the song, I recorded it for her. But she's super talented keyboardist, man. She smokes it, though. And she is just starting to kind of go into that where she wants to compose stage. And but she's been leading worship with me at church since she was 9.
Oh, that's awesome.
And we're leading worship now. I married a woman from Colombia 18 years ago. We got our daughter. And of course, we're immersed in the Spanish culture. Most of my friends now are Spanish. I do have some American friends. But we've been involved in the Spanish church now, wow, a long time, man, since Tiffany was about 3 or 4 years old. And she started leading worship at 9, and we're still leading worship together on Sunday mornings. It's just me and her. We don't have anybody else to help us right now. But, man, I love worshiping with my daughter, man. She is so anointed, man.
Oh, that's very cool. That's got to feel pretty awesome to be able to do that with your kid. I got kids also, so it's pretty cool when you can worship with them.
It's awesome, man. A lot of times, man, I'm strumming the guitar, man. I'm just really just basking in the glory, listening to her worship.
What is it? Is it your church or is it a church you attend?
It's a church we attend, man. My one of my callings, man, is basically, and I just put a name on it this morning, man. It wasn't didn't have anything to do with talking to you, man. But I'm like a Caleb. I really support the pastor, man, and try to strengthen him and what he's trying to do. And it's a young pastor, Calvary Chapel, Lexington, Pastor John. They approached me. I was going to the harvest, and we were leading worship at La Cosecha, and they approached me from Calvary Chapel probably 5 years ago. They wanted to start a Spanish ministry. So I went and met with them, and I only had one person I could recommend, and he was an older gentleman, and we met, and I took him over there, but it just wasn't a good fit. Let me cut that sound off, man. I'm sorry.
Can you hear me okay? It just started pouring over here. Might be
Yeah, I
all,
hear you fine. Yeah, man.
you hear all that background noise?
I can't hear nothing, man. I have got advanced stage tinnitus that if you could hear what I hear in my head, you'd scream.
Oh man,
It's horrible, man. And it's got to the point now where I jump out of my skin with loud noises.
really? I'll praying for healing then.
Yeah, it's been going on for probably 35 or 40 years, man. I've had it a long time, and it gets worse and worse and worse, and there ain't nothing the doctors can do about it.
Man,
I am taking some natural stuff now that some dude swears works, but I've been on it for now coming up on uh, coming up on a month, and they said you'd start seeing some results in a month. They are insisting that tinnitus is not an ear problem; it's a brain problem. And anyway, I hope he's right. I've been taking. They said I should see some results in a month, but man, how do you gauge results when you've got this loud ringing all the time? I don't know how. I'd have to actually find that frequency and find what decibel level matches what's in my head, and then check it in a month to see. But man, I can't. I don't think I can pull it off.
wow, crazy.
I'm just praying and hoping it's going to do something because man, it's so horrible, man.
Yeah, I can't imagine. The Lord heal him.
Hallelujah.
Did you grow up in the church?
I would say, yeah, for the most part, man. My parents divorced when I was a baby, and my mother and her parents were Lutheran. I went through catechism in Jacksonville at the Lutheran Church. We were in Jacksonville. And Jacksonville back then was the most progressive city in the South, man. I mean, it was the first three albums I got in Jacksonville were Emerson, Lake and Palmer, Tarkus, Black Sabbath, Master Reality, and Deep Purple, Machine Head. So that was kind of where my musical journey started, was right there with them, and had the room all decked out with posters and stuff. And anyway, had problems with my stepdad. I couldn't get along with him too good, and my father had come from L.A. and was living. My grandfather bought a farm out in Pond Branch, 69 acres, and they taught me into coming up there. So I went up there and stayed with them. Well, my dad's wife, me and her couldn't get along either. And it was probably mostly me. But when he moved to Jacksonville, he didn't stay on the farm that long. He was kind of a big city guy. He went back to St. Pete, and I lasted down there less than a month. And I had an old Yamaha 200. I was 14 years old, didn't have a license, had a tag somebody gave me, no insurance. And we had a big fight, and Dad took me outside, and he said, "I can't live like this." Said, "You say the word, and I'll get rid of it, me and you." I remember I just said, "I said, no, Dad, I'll go." And so I put my suitcase and my guitar on my Yamaha 200, and they followed me to Wackasassa, where my stepdad and mother were camping, and I hung out with them. And then I followed them back to Jacksonville, and then I drove the bike from Jacksonville back to Columbia. And anyway, I stayed at one place with the Paxtons. They didn't go to church. And then when I got kicked out of there, I used to shoot pool for money, and I got into a game of six ball, and I borrowed $5 to get in, and I won. I bought beer for the house all night, left at home $32, but I didn't remember driving home, and I never met this guy. He worked out of town, and I paid him. I paid the electric bill to stay there, and he came in every once in a while on the weekend, and his mother was there. Never been there. And I got up the next morning. I walk in the living room. She's sitting there, man, and I said, "What's this sticky stuff all over me?" She said, "That must be that pecan pie you took to bed last night." So she left, man, and Bucky says, "My mom says you can't stay here no more. You smoke and you drink, and you can't stay here. This place already burned down once." And so the Rishes, my buddy Walter, they had a farm, his parents, and they had old school bus they kept animals in. And it was next to the cow pen, and they said I could move in there. So Miss Rish cleaned that thing out and sprayed like 10 cans of Lysol. And I had $132. I'd won that night shooting pool. And I bought the material. I painted it yellow. I had an orange curtain that went all the way around, went in and out the emergency door. And one of the dudes I shot pool with, they were older guys. I was young. He brought me back by the bus and dumped a whole truckload of shag carpet remnants, and he gave me the glue and a knife, and I pieced it together. I made a purple velvet couch with two end tables. It was just made out of plywood. I had a little single bed in the back with a vanity, man, and then I had this white chair, one of the brown chairs, and I'd sit in that chair, and that's where I really started smoking the lead guitar, because I just would sit there and just play. And the Rishes went to a church. I don't have any clue what denomination it was, but I do remember going with them to church. I don't know if I went regularly or what. I paid them $20 a month, and they let me stay there. I lived in that bus 2 years, and we went to church, but I was, just headed down the wrong road, man, getting into drinking and drugs and all that other mess. And anyway, they finally booted me out of school when they found out I didn't have a legal guardian. So I went over to my grandmother's sign for me to go to Irmo, and I only took two classes. I got out of school like 10:30, and I go hang around the pool or whatever and wait on all my friends to get out, and just a party lifestyle. And I ended up moving into a trailer out in Gaston, and that's when I cut my first album, was Starting Over, like my dream come true. And all my friends, my close friends, loved it, man. But all the people I worked with down at the sweat factory, this is the South, man, and they just hated it, bro. It was like putting my heart on the plate and giving them the knife, and really hurt my feelings deep. And I was bummed out for like 6 months or so. And then, dummy me, man, I decided to do a country music single. I'd written a country song as a joke, because I had a dude I worked with at the factory, man, and he played drums in a band, and he had friends down at the Studio 26, and they wanted to hear some of my music. So I gave him a cassette copy of Job's Revenge. I think it was Job's Revenge. And they took the studio. He came back. "What instrument was that, man? What was that?" I said, "Man, that was a guitar." He said, "That wasn't no guitar." I said, "Yeah, that was a guitar." It was so funny. And I wrote a song, man. I think it was Georgia Peaches. It was a joke. And I sent it down there with them, and they loved it, of course. So when everybody dogged me out about my first album, I cut a country music single, the old singles with the big hole in the middle. And of course, everybody loved it. Didn't hear one negative comment about that record, man. And
That
so
record still floating around somewhere?
I got it. I got it on it's on the Dwarr website, man. What it was is, because I did that single there, and then that was 1985. And I don't know why people get the date wrong on Starting Over. Some people put 85 on that thing. It was 84. It was 85 when I did that country music single. And of course, that led to the Animals album in '86, man, when I just had a lot of anger, I guess, and wanted vengeance for all of that crap. And that supposedly, according to the heavy rock people, that's my best work. And people in the past have said that I'm the father of doom metal with the Animals album, which I have no idea. I told the dude, I said, man, I have no idea. I worked at the sweat factory. I took time. I worked. I got the album done, and I went back to work. I never had a band, and but anyway, and then that country music single has survived, man, because I actually took it, which was 2 songs, and then I did a 5-song country EP in '88. I just wanted to do it. And so I got those 7 songs on a CD. It's a cheapo package, man. I mean, I shrink wrapped and then we glued the covers on and everything. But it is, I mean, it is there. And it's pretty interesting stuff, man. I don't know why, but I like comedy country, man. Funny stuff. So there's 2 or 3 songs out of that 7 that are pretty funny.
Heck yeah, I'm gonna have to check it out. I've only listened to the metal stuff, so I'm excited to hear it. So
I mean, it's interesting stuff, man. You might like it.
yeah, I mean, I like some country music. I like good humor too. So the as the story goes, I guess you had your Damascus Road experience sometime after that, right? After was it in the middle of Animals or after you recorded it?
It was I went through some major events, man, in 1988, and made some really stupid moves with my life, and ended up because in '86, man, I was at the top of the field and all. And I cut the Animals out, and it was that relationship dissolved, and basically I was starting over. I thought I was going to chase my dreams, man, but crap, I had to worry about food and shelter first. So by the time I got it all back together, man, it was around '93. It took me 5 years to get back to where I was as far as creativity and production with creativity and art. In '93, I was working on the Crying Souls album, my 3rd album, man. I had just been picked up by Black Widow Records in Genoa, Italy, picked up by a distributor in Irving, Texas. Watching a big bird eat the fish in my pond right now. Sorry, man. Just saw him throw his head up, shunking his 8-inch brim down his face.
Or you live out in some country or
No, man, I've got an acre right here. I'm a mile from the Lowe's and the Walmart and all, but I've got an acre and I've got my own pond in the backyard. The lady that owned all this property, when she cut it up, she cut my lot up with the pond. So I've got the pond, and I got this big gray hair, man. They say they only live 20 years, but man, this dude's been coming here 30 years since I bought this house. And he's bold as he can be. He's right there, probably 30 feet outside my window, just eating the fish. He comes back every year. So they live at least 30 years. So I need to call the wildlife people and say, hey, man, these guys live a lot longer than 20 years. But anyway, I was working on that album. I was a little over halfway done with it. I was writing a movie script, man. It was always like my ultimate dream to do a cheap movie, man, and do the sound and everything. So I'm working on this movie script, man. I just finished up the Are You Real video, which I hope you've seen that. That's the one
oh
where
yeah, it's great.
it's me messed up with the strobe lights playing the music. And I went down to Midlands Tech, 2-year college here, and to their library, and I got the books with the Renaissance art. So I photographed the artwork, and I shot that thing right in the living room of my house for the most part. So I got that thing finished up and edited. So everywhere I go, and I'm showing that video, man. And I'm working on the 3rd album. Working on the movie script. I've got 2 more videos I'm ready to shoot. We're getting ready to shoot Candlelight was the next one we're going to shoot. And the Striders was the best rock and roll bar in Columbia. And I just rented some warehouse space next to it to shoot video. Anyway, it looked like all my dreams were coming true, man. the way I always compare my salvation. You hear everybody talk about, hitting rock bottom and looking up. That ain't the way it happened with me. I was kind of on the way going in the door, man. And the best way I can relate it is the old vaudeville where, the ladies would dance and do their thing. And then in the middle, some clown like guy would come out and do his dance or do whatever he's doing. And that big old cane comes out from the side and gets him around the neck and snatches him off the stage. You ever seen that?
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about.
And that's historical crap, but that's what God did to me, man. I was doing my little thing, song and dance, and putting on my show, and it looked like all my dreams were coming true, man. I mean, I always wanted to do rock and roll and be a big time rock star, and it looked like my foot was going in the door, man, and the Lord just bam snatched me straight off of that stage. And I had rented that studio on a Friday. I got saved on a Saturday. I called the lady Monday and she gave me my money back. I told her I got saved. I didn't need that studio anymore. And she gave me my money back. Pretty nice of her.
And then around that time, you burn all you. I'd heard you'd burned all the recordings that you'd done up to that point, or at least some of them, because some of them made through, right?
Yeah, I left a whole bunch of stuff out, man. I mean, Bo, I couldn't even hardly sleep at night, man. I thought it was going to take me a year or so to write this movie script, man. The enemy knew I was coming to the crossroad, man, and I just couldn't hardly sleep at night. That movie was coming to me so fast. It was about a demon from ancient times coming down through the ages and different civilizations, just wreaking havoc, man, and just giving it to me like that, man. And it was weird, man. God wouldn't come in my house, man. But when I was out, uh, he was talking to me, and I was seeing my granddad, who was my best buddy. My granddaddy was my best buddy in the world, man. And because I left home so young, he was the guy I could always go and talk to, and he was always there for me, pretty much. If you ever listen to my country gospel project, "Don't Die Lost," that song's dedicated to him. "Don't Let My Young Grandson Die Lost." That CD's dedicated to him, and he never pushed on me. He never saw me saved, man. I got saved July 17th of 1993, and we buried him on June the 17th. It was 1 month a day from the time we buried him that I got saved. But
Man,
I would see him I would see him with Jesus in the Renaissance Ark. I was going out one night, going out to the strip joint, man, and I'm driving. I'm not even drinking yet, man, or anything. And I go around a curve, man, and a lightning bolt hit about 20 feet from my car, man. Pow! And I looked over, man, and I saw Jesus in the seat with me. And I looked away and looked back, and he was gone. But he was right there, man, and that lightning bolt hit about 20 feet from my car. And
crazy.
it was crazy stuff. And a lot of people can't relate to my experience, man, but you got to remember, man, I had supernatural, spiritual stuff going on in my life when I was on the dark side. So it only makes sense that I would have some pretty heavy duty spiritual stuff going on when I'm on the good side. I had Ron Sparks. He was my session drummer on the Animals album and the Starting Over album. And I had called him up. I was getting ready to do Animals. I said, "Ron, come on over tonight, man. I want you to hear this music. I'm ready to record this next album." And he came over, and I let him hear the music. And we were drinking and doing all our stuff, man. He said, "Man, I want to hear Job's Revenge before I leave, man. That was my favorite song was Starting Over." I said, "Okay." So I had it on a tape from the Midnight Album Hour at WUSC University Station, and I put it in, man. And I'm sitting on the floor, and Ron's sitting on the piano bench. And I always, back in them days, I had a red and blue light overhead. The stereo was on the wall. It was like a wall of amps. it was stupid. It was in a double wide mobile home, a trailer park where I recorded them albums. The roof sagged right there from all that weight. And I plugged it in. I put it on. I'm sitting on the floor, man, and lights go out. And then we're listening to music. And, Ron starts freaking out, but the lights come back on again. Lights come back on. So Ron's getting upset a little bit. I'm laughing. Lights go off again. And then it goes on. I don't know how long. And then the stereo cuts off. So the stereo cuts off. And we're sitting there in the dark with one candle burning. And then the stereo came back on and it finished the song. And then the lights came back on. And the person I was living with at the time would not go in that room, man. She said that room was haunted. And it was, man. I could see it sometimes. I had the mirrors on both walls. So that like it reflected back to, for infinity, because I had them facing each other. And I could see that darn. I could see it back there in the distance sometimes. But yeah, had lots of weird experiences, man, as a non-believer, sex, drug, rock and roll hellion. So I think I've got a special kind of connection with God because of that spirituality I had on the dark side. So I'm pretty sensitive to the spirit, man, and sometimes I can hear him super clear, man.
That's awesome. So the moment you had when you found God, what happened then that was so profound, I guess. Can you explain a little bit about what that was like?
Yeah, I can tell you what it. So this was all leading up to it, man. I mean, this intense darkness in my house with the movie script and the videos and all that crap, and then outside the house, man, God working on me. It was my time. The enemy knew it. God knew he was going to save me, of course. And we had this family problem. My grandfather had just died, and right before he died, my grandmother, I went over to visit, and my grandmother had put this dude's pictures up with our family pictures. And I'm like, who is this guy? And it turned out, man, that my dad had a son with a married woman. The husband was in jail. And supposedly this dude was my brother, my half brother. And I didn't believe it, man. And I'd heard a little bit about, I had some vague memories, man, from when I was a kid. I lived with my dad that year when I was 13. I mean, I thought the way I saw this dude was, I mean, his granddaddy was a multi-millionaire, man, and kind of had the golden spoon up his rear end was the way I saw him. And my granddaddy took me out on the porch and he said, I don't know. I don't know if that's your half brother or not. I said, you're the legitimate grandson, blah, blah, and all that, and tried to assure me. So anyway, my grandfather passed away. My dad's got cancer. He's not doing well. He actually dies the next year. And anyway, one of the few people on the planet that talked to me when I was upset back then, who I had been in a relationship with for 11 years earlier, calls me up, says, your grandmother's grieving, your dad's not doing well. Said, you have got to meet this guy and make peace with it. And she's the only one that could have talked to me like that. And I said, okay. So Saturday, we set it up for Saturday. So my dad tells me, says, Wayne, says, Dana's a real Christian young man, says, don't talk to him about your music. Don't say anything about your music. Well, of course, I'm going to talk to him about my music. So we had lunch. I met him, and we went and sat on the couch, and we're talking. I said, I don't know how it came out, but I quoted him the lyrics from "Reach for the Fire," which was my mother's favorite song on Starting Over. Reach for the fire, let it take you away, burn in the distance. It sees you coming, no stopping now. As you approach it, your hands reach for your eyes. Your skin burns, your flesh burns. Could this be death? No, you're not dead. You're part of the candle of life. You'll burn here forever and ever. No, you will not die. And Dana says, Wayne, that's straight out of the pit of hell. And we talked a little bit more, man. And I had like a real true Pauline experience, man, where I had seen the world one way and the scales just came off my eyes and I realized I'd been wrong. And my grandmother, who's dead now, of course, but she said when I prayed, she said she felt some dark, evil thing go through the room and leave. Uh, and I talked, and he was just dead set that my music was from the pit of hell. And he's the one that said, you need to get all this out of your house and you need to burn all that stuff. And I got all, I mean, I had a dog bone wind chime and cow skull, and I had the big Dwarr banner, and I had the distributors that bought out all the animals albums. I didn't have any of those, but I did have Starting Over albums. And so we scheduled for next Saturday. We scheduled for the next Saturday to I was going to his place. He lived about an hour away, and I was going up there to burn everything. Anyway, when we were doing that, man, I mean, I've been saved 5, 6 days, and there was such a darkness in there, man, that you could see the fear on her face, and I was scared. I didn't know what to do, and I have no idea what I prayed, but I went in the bathroom and closed the door and got down on my knees and prayed. And a 6-day-year-old Christian, man, I mean, God heard that prayer, and whatever that was left my house. And I had peace in my house for the first time in my life.
How's it been going since then? Like, you say you're sensitive to all this stuff. What, any other kind of experiences you've had?
Uh, since I've been saved. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, man, let me tell you a good one, man. When I first got saved, man, I ended up going to Fish Hatchery Road Church of God, Pastor Wendell Hendricks, man, a special, special man in my life. That first year I was saved, it was right around the corner. I mean, I lived and I call it Little LA, man. I mean, man, I had a crack deal on this side, crack deal on this side, crack deal across the street, bootlegger, fighting guns. They never bothered me, man. I had 2 10-foot pythons, 2 German shepherds, a chow, and 3 guns, man. So I never had no problems. But I lived in a really bad neighborhood. But when I got saved, man, and this is another thing I left out of the story, man. About a year before I got saved, man, it was a Saturday morning, and Debbie Kelly from Kittywake Baptist Church calls me up and invites me to church. And I don't know why. I said, okay. So I went. It was a Baptist church. And I went in there, man. And when you're in the world, man, everybody wants something from you. They want your sex, your drugs, your booze, or your money. They all want something. And when I went into that church, man, they were meeting at it used to be I think it was a Piggly Wiggly grocery store in West Columbia. But when you walked in the door, man, they had these 2 little old lady greeters. And I mean, I have a cooler beer in the car, my joints in the car, ready to go play volleyball. And I'd go in there, though, man. And when I would walk in that door, man, with my long haired wild dude look, man, and them little old ladies would light up like it was Christmas, man. And they didn't want nothing from me. That was the main reason I went back, man, was them little old ladies. And every once in a while, man, I'd feel the Lord. No, leave me alone, man. I'm having too much fun. And I remember this is something there's conflict about too, man. But I remember, they would have communion some Sundays, and I wouldn't take it. I mean, I knew I was a hellion. And I remember one day it went by me, and I passed it to that next guy. And a lot of people don't agree with this, but that guy said, "Go ahead, man. This is for sinners." So I took it. But it was about a year went on, man. And then when I got saved, I was going to Fish Hatchery Road Church of God. and they were spirit filled. I played the bass. Pastor Hendricks, before he got saved, he was a nightclub musician, and he'd be drunk as a cooter, man, and never miss a note. And he was the preacher, the pastor, and he played the keyboards, and I'd be smoking on the bass. And my dad was dying, and me and my dad were two of a kind. We had partied together and done stupid stuff together, and I got saved. And of course, that was not good for our relationship, man. I mean, he told me, he said, God doesn't care if you go out and strip joints and whore around and do drugs and drink. And I said, get behind me, Satan. And anyway, he didn't talk to me for like 3 months, man, but he was dying of lymphoma cancer. And I forget what I said to him exactly, man, but I prayed. I had the whole church, man. It was one Sunday. The whole church laid hands on me and prayed. And I went over there and I got down on my knee in front of my dad. He wasn't doing good. And I asked him to forgive me, not for what I said, but for the way I said it. And it restored our relationship. And I was there for him, man. I mean, I would be driving down the road and see cars in front of a church, and I would pull in and ask him to pray for my dad's salvation. And as he progressed, he was in the hospital, man, and they prayed for me at church, man, and I had the anointing oil on my hand, driving with one hand, praying in the spirit all the way to the church, all the way to the hospital. And I went in his room, man, and the Lord just laid it down, man. The Lord wanted to heal him and just laid it down, this. And but the Lord couldn't heal him, man. He would have gone straight back to the pit. He would have gone straight back to all the bad things that he was into. So the Lord took him. And I tell you what, man, when the Lord took him, I was in there the night before he died, and I could almost see that angel standing over there waiting to take him. And when I walked out of that hospital when he died, man, I was singing Victory in Jesus. I went to church that Sunday. I said, the music guy said, hey, man, you think we can sing Victory in Jesus this morning? He said, yeah. So when we got to Victory in Jesus, man, we didn't have no more preaching. We walked around that church probably for 30 minutes singing Victory in Jesus. But anyway, I was writing a song, man. I was writing some songs as I was fighting in this spiritual warfare for my dad, man, and that Don't Die Lost project. Most of those songs come from that spiritual warfare for my dad. But one song there, I was sitting on the couch, man, in my shorts in front of my aquarium. I always love my aquariums. I got a 150-gallon reef tank now. And this song starts coming to me. It's called Ode to Lucifer. It's on the Holy One project. And the song started coming to me, and I started, working up the chord work and the words and all. And I'm sitting there in my shorts, man, and something touched my leg. It just ran its finger down my leg. It felt like the finger of death. And the next day, man, I was like burning up with fever on the couch, couldn't get off the couch, man. And I said, wow, man, I'm not going to do that song. Let's leave that song alone. And about 2 or 3 weeks went by, man, and I felt the Lord saying to me, I want you to do that song. And I said, okay. So the night I finished it up, and I was going to sing it the next night at Wednesday night service, Ode to Lucifer in a Church of God church. That went over like a brick. So I'm finishing it up, and I come out of the music room, man, and whatever had touched my leg was right there. And I felt it, man. I just froze. I didn't move. But God didn't let it touch me that time. And it left. So the next night I get to the church, man. Wednesday night is having singing. It's supposed to have a lot of singing. So I go up there, and I had one of the little boys read, I think the verses, either Ezekiel or Isaiah, about Lucifer. And I told him, I said, the Lord told me last night when I finished this song, nobody to clap. Don't want anybody to clap. And this is the only time I've done this, man, but the kid was up there. I had the guitar strapped on, and I had the sax too. And so I did the first couple verses, and then I did the sax solo, and I handed the kid the sax. And then I did the next two verses. I flipped it around. I did the lead guitar, man. And I got done. And Bo, you could have heard a pin drop in that place, man. And I don't know how it seemed like forever, man. It was just silence, dead silence. And there was no more singing that night. The pastor jumped up and he was preaching. He walked her back in the pews that night, man. He was so wound up. I know why God didn't want anybody to clap. And I got back to my seat, man. And I think out of all the songs I've written since I've been saved, that's the only one that I really just wrote for the Father, man. And I really heard the Lord say, man, well done. And I had people come up to me, man, like a month or two later, crying because when I did that song, man, I mean, they had me condemned going to hell. And come up to me crying, asked me to forgive them that they had judged me wrong on that. But anyway, that was a kind of cool experience. I got
Yeah.
another good one that something supernatural happened. It's only happened one time since I've been saved. Uh, I went on my first mission trip with my church in 1995. And they told me, take your earring out, and as long as you keep your hair pulled back, everything will be fine. So we went to Venezuela. So, and we stopped in Caracas. I got to have Gary Heine. He was the head of missions, and I got to have a coffee with him and talk to him some. It was really cool. Best coffee I ever had in my life. I drank two of them. It was awesome. But then we got to Coro. That's where we were going to minister. And Coro, Venezuela is a very historical city. They actually moved the capital because they didn't want to put any skyscrapers in. But we got off the plane, man, and we go to our room, and I'm rooming with two younger. The youth are with us, and we're the singles. So I'm rooming with two youths because I think I'm on the only single male on the trip. There's only like four women and me with the singles group, and I just felt something was wrong with my spirit, man. I went to the bathroom. The boys left the room, and I went to the bathroom and I got on my knees and I was praying in the spirit, man, probably for close to 30 minutes. And I got up, and when I got up and I walked out the door, I got about 15 feet, and they were coming to get me. And we got a problem. No, okay. Said the church here says that nobody that looks like you can know God. Okay. Said you've got to cut your hair or leave.
No way.
Oh yeah. And now I worked 6 months to get there, man, to raise my money and all this stuff. And so anyway, at the motel, man, they whacked. I gotta find it, man. They actually gave it back to me on a plaque.
Your hair?
Yeah, they cut my ponytail off, man, and they put it on a plaque. And I didn't know they had kept it put on, but they kept it. And when we got back, they put it on a plaque, gave it to me one Sunday. But anyway, so they cut it off, man. So that was Saturday. So Sunday morning, we're at the church. This is the main church. We're actually going. I'm the head of the construction crew. We're actually going to paint one of their daughter churches on the outskirts of town. But we're at the main church, the mother church, for the first service. And this young lady comes up to me, Dwayne, the pastor wants you to say something this morning. It's a big privilege. And I said, I ain't got nothing to say to y'all right now. And she left, and she was outside, man. And I just heard the Lord said, you've got to say something. So I walked outside. I told her, I said, okay. I said, I'll say something. So they called me up. They wanted me to give my testimony. So I went up. I gave my testimony, and this has only happened one time. This never happened again. I got done with my testimony, man, and a spirit of prophecy hit me, man, and I started prophesying over the city of Coro. It's never happened before or since. One time experience, man. The spirit of prophecy hit me, and I prophesied over that city, man. That was pretty wild. I have no idea. But anyway, we're
What'd you
leaving at
say?
the airport. I don't know. I don't remember, man. I don't remember. I wish I knew. I wish had a tape of it. But it was just God, man. It wasn't me. I really don't know what I said. It was just the spirit of prophecy came on me, and I was prophesying over to the city of Coro, Venezuela.
What'd it feel like?
It just, I don't know that I can remember, man. I know that it wasn't me. It was just God, the Holy Spirit, man, speaking over that city through me, and it was a real special experience, man. I never had it happen again, but it was awesome, incredibly awesome. But we're getting ready to leave the airport the next week, man. When we get done, I think we're there 10 days, and everybody's coming up to me crying and forgive me for judging you and all this crap, and which was all cool and made some really good friends. I went back down there in '97, but their pastor, one of their pastors, came to our church in the United States in '96, man. And I got to talk to him, and he said, "Duane, you have no idea how much you coming and cutting your hair affected our church on judging people for the way they look."
Hmm.
So
Yeah, it reminds me of that verse about, I think it was Paul, who talks about like becoming.
all things, all people, that by all means some may be saved.
Yeah, yeah, amen. Yeah, yeah, it's a tricky situation. Yeah, when people start telling you what
Interesting
to do.
stuff. But yeah,
Yeah.
that was pretty cool. And I did have, and I went to Honduras the next year, and another kind of supernatural experience I had, man. I was working at Southern Plastics, and I was working overtime because I worked in feed prep, but I'd work over my it was 4 and 4 off, so I worked on my days off, and I was working over profile on cutoff, which there were some women that worked that job too, just to make some extra money, man. And there was a lady had this big lump on her hand. It looked like a half a golf ball. And I saw it and everything, man. Didn't really think nothing about it, man. About 3 a.m., man, I heard the Lord saying, I want you to go pray for that lady's hand. I said, okay. So I went over there, man. I said, is it okay if I pray for your hand? I said, what's going on with your hand? She said, oh, I forget what she said, but she said, I've got to have it surgically removed. I said, you mind if I pray for it? She said, okay. So I prayed for her hand, man. And I pray with my understanding, but I always pray in the spirit too. Uh, and I went back to my job, man. I'm over there doing my job. And, about 50 minutes later, she comes over and says, uh, what did you do? I said, I just prayed for your hand. I said, what's going to happen? I said, I don't know. Maybe God's going to heal you. I don't know. I got nothing to do with that. And it's kind of wild. I didn't never see that lady. She worked on another shift, and she got fired the next week for missing too much time or something, man. And one of the other ladies that worked there went over to visit her about a month or so later, and since she knocked on the door, the lady came to the door. Her and her daughter were there. They were watching Christian TV, and she was just ranting and raving about God healing her hand.
No way. That's awesome.
Yeah. And then when we went to Honduras the next year, man, I was the construction guy, but we had people that did like those clown sets and stuff, stories and stuff like that. Uh, so I'm just in the congregation, I'm the work guy, and the pastor's wife, the missionary that we were visiting to help, Ricky Saldana, his wife Maria was sitting in front of me, and I'm just in the service, man, and I felt like the Lord saying, I want you to pray for Maria. I'm like, okay. So I just I laid hands on Maria and I just prayed in the spirit. I didn't know what the crap I was praying about. So I just laid hands on her, behind her, didn't say nothing. And I mean, the service is going on. And I just put my hands on her and prayed in the spirit. And we got done with the service, man. And after service, she comes up, she said, Duane, Said, I've been struggling with severe migraines for 3 days, and when you touched me, they left. Okay. And then they brought some little baby and said, Duane, you've got this anointing, man. Pray for this baby. I'm like, okay. I don't know anything happened, but I know they did bring that baby for me to pray for after God took care of the migraines. Stuff like that, man.
That's cool. You got some different tastes, so I'm curious, like what kind of worship music you tend to listen to.
I don't listen to much of nothing anymore, man. But the music that I love to play, man, is the Hispanic praise and worship, man. I love doing my Hispanic praise and worship, man. I mean, I sweat like a pig because I am really putting all of my energy and all of my strength into praising God. I mean, that's my job is to push through and help the congregation, come into God's presence and get whatever they need, hopefully.
What's your favorite one to play?
I love Niña de tus ojos, Manda lluvia. Uh, we do El Gran Yo Soy. That's the great I am in Spanish. Uh, I just love Spanish worship, man. It's contemporary Spanish worship, and I do try to do at least normally at the end of the service every other week or so. How great thou art, Juan Grande Sale, O tu fidelidad. That's what is that? That's great is thy faithfulness. So I do like doing some of the old hymns in Spanish too for them. And man, they tried to start up an English service at 8 a.m. and Teef and I were leading that in English. And man, it was hard to sing in English. I'm just so used to lead worship in Spanish.
You were talking about some of the music you were listening to growing up and stuff, and that Sabbath album, was it Masters of Reality? I mean, that's got some pretty legit Christian tracks on there.
And that was the very first concert I went to in my life, man, in Jacksonville, 1972, Jacksonville Coliseum. I think it was my first date. And I took this little girl and we went, and it was the exact same. The stage was, I think, the Paranoid album cover. It was the exact same. It looked like you could take a picture of it for the album cover. And I remember we were there, man, and there was this dude he had incense stuck in all the seats around him. And he was over there with a needle, man, hitting up, man. And I mean, this is 13-year-old kids. He asked us if we wanted some. And we got up and moved. We went to another seat. We're just kids, man. Leave us alone. But yeah, I don't know, and that's the thing that I've gone back and revisited, man. When I did the shows out in Texas back in 2012, uh, and a lot of people disagree with me on this, and I don't know where your position would be, and hopefully I remember to tell you another story because this goes back to another story that tells this clearer. But I really feel like if you really listen to the Starting Over and the Animals album, just like you're saying about that old Black Sabbath, you could hear a man searching for God. Not all the time, but I was searching for God, man. I mean, Are You Real was on the 86 Animals album. Christ, Christ, are you real? Tell me if my soul can heal. Love, love from above. Fly me off upon the dove. So when I did the shows out in Texas, man, in 2012, after they reissued the two albums, the old albums, it's part of who I am and it's part of how I got here, man. And it's part of my story. And my story leads to God. So I don't, at the time that I burnt the albums, it was the right thing to do because I needed to make drastic change in my life and get myself on track. But I'm on track now. It doesn't get me off track. And I did do some songs. I did songs from Starting Over. I did songs from Animals. I did songs from Holy One. I did a song or two, I think, from Crying Souls, a song about my grandmama, baby sister, that was never released and probably never will be. And then I did the songs from Holy One and from Times of Terror. But it's all of that stuff, man. I didn't do anything that's going to go against God in any way. But that old music, man, is part of who I am, man. And
Yeah, definitely.
it was the right thing to do at that time. But right now, man, it's a part of who I am. And it's
Yeah.
part of my story. And if I'm trying to convey my experience, my real experience that got me to God, that's part of it, man.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, I remember hearing that track on Animals. I mean, you can definitely feel like God moving on that. Just, I mean, it was a yeah, it was just you being raw and real. And I think that stuff's really, to me, I think that stuff is really important because you got a lot of people who are in the same spot, and
Amen. That's 100% true, man. Let me tell you something that happened, and this is kind of in this same subject matter. I was working at Southern Plastics, man, and I had done the Don't Die Lost country gospel album. Everybody loved it, man. So I felt like the Lord wanted me to do a rock project. When there was a Chris, I was working night shifts. I was a night shift foreman, and there was a Christian brother working day shift, man. He comes in, well, I'm coming in, and I'm telling him, wow, the Lord just told me, man, he wants me to do a Christian rock project, man. And man, he lit on me like I was backsliding, going to hell. I'm serious, man. And I'm working the night shift. It's about 3 a.m., man. And the Lord spoke to me just like I'm talking to you. Said, Dwayne, the people that are going to be offended with this new project, they're already offended, and you haven't played a note.
mm,
You've got to do what I tell you to do. Okay.
yeah,
That's all I got to hear right there, man. Okay. But yeah,
yeah,
man, I mean, that's wild, man. And I didn't go back to it, man. But a big part of my story, man, was when the first project I did as a Christian was Don't Die Lost. And you ought to get that and listen to it. Uh, the first track I laid down as a Christian was Don't Let My Young Grandson Die Lost, man. And when I felt like the Lord wanted me to do the project, I went in the studio, man. We're talking to the first time I've ever been in a studio without drugs and booze. And I was in there, man, probably 3 or 4 hours. And I didn't buy a note, man. I couldn't get anything, nothing. And I left it alone and gave up. And I guess it was about 3 months later, man. And I felt like the Lord was saying, I want you to do this project. I said, okay. So I went back in there again. I was in there for like 5 hours and I had not bought nothing. And I'm getting ready to walk out again, man. It's about 11 o'clock at night. I'm ready. I'm done. I'm frustrated. I can't do this. It's not going to happen. Man, the Lord spoke to me like I'm talking to you, man. Dwayne, you're not that good a musician. You got to work harder. I said, okay. About
dang.
6 a.m., man, I finished that song.
Oh shoot.
And I went in the other room to listen to the music with a different perspective. And I'm sitting in the chair, and I got my picture that was over my granddaddy's couch up over the fireplace, and I'm sitting there listening to this song, looking at the picture, man. I was just talking to me that night, man. You're going to call this project "Don't Die Lost," and you're going to dedicate it to your granddad, and that's what I did.
That's beautiful,
And,
man. I love it. Yeah.
and that darn and man, it's so funny, man. Every time I would start to do something fancy on that project, keep it simple, keep it simple, keep it simple, keep it simple. I mean, man, that is like three chords. It's so simple, that project, man. But it's a lot of it, man, with that spiritual battle over my dad's soul, man. And I was a young Christian, man. I mean, that was like the first year of my salvation. I wrote all that music, first year or two. And then when I got to Holy One, man, the first track I recorded on Holy One was Conquest. Only royalty check I ever got, man. I got a royalty check on that song from International Radio Play from Taiwan. And my brother, Dana, I let him hear it. He wanted me to call it Distant Land. I hadn't named it yet. I said, Dwayne, that sounds like Distant Land. He was right, man, because I ended up getting a royalty check from Taiwan. That's about as distant as you can get. But I called it Conquest, man, and it starts out with the piano because it's supposed to be like a people at peace. And then things get intense and war breaks out, and then the war is intensified, and then they get the victory and it goes back to peace. And I started that song. It starts out with the piano. Well, then it goes to a sax solo. And man, I got to that sax solo, man. First thing I've recorded since the Keep It Simple project. And the Lord says, let it go. And I'm telling you, man, I was playing that sax because I played the best sax of my life. I was going to a Pentecostal church on Highway 1, and they would have them hour altar calls, and I was playing sax 3-piece with a drummer and a keyboardist. So I'm playing the best sax of my life. I'll never play like that again. So he said, let it go, let it go. So, man, I'm telling you, man, I got to that sax solo, man, and the Spirit was just whirling me around the room, man. It's like I was flying. And there was supposed to be keyboard for something after that sax track, but after that sax track, no way that was going to work. So I did that little lead guitar track at the end, and it worked out really good, man. It was interesting, man. It's like I don't have control over it like I used to with drugs and the booze, man. But back in those days, I could control the lights and I could control the high to get, because I wouldn't play if there was white lights, and I wouldn't play if I didn't have no weed and no booze. I wouldn't do it. Everything had to be right, because people were expecting me to kick their butts, man, to blow their minds, and that's what I was. To do that, I needed my stuff. So when I got saved, man, I didn't have that, and the only thing I got now is the Holy Spirit. Well, I can't really control that like I could before. So I just have to trust that he's going to help me. And he does. He always does, man. And I've had some some of them guitar licks, man, especially in Times of Terror. I didn't get any kudos for Times of Terror. The one review I read said, it's full of sick, sizzling lead guitar that's hard to get into. But the special thing about Times of Terror, man, was all the other projects I've ever done in my life, man, I already had the songs written. When I did the Starting Over album, I had 100 songs to choose from. When I did Animals, I had 160 something songs to choose from. And I picked out my 13 favorites, my 10 favorites on Starting Over, my 13 favorites on Animals. And I actually, on Animals, some of those songs that are on Animals are from the original 100 that weren't chosen for the Starting Over project. And then when I became a Christian, I was, the songs on the Holy One project were already kind of recorded in a basic format, and I just had to redo them and polish them up for release. But when I got to Times of Terror, and I had regrets, man, because there's a lot of sax work on Holy One, man, because I was playing a lot of sax in that church at that time. So there's like, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 sax songs on there. And I kind of regretted it, man, because Dwarr is supposed to be heavy rock. And I kind of regretted it that I had that contemporary feel on there too. The odd songs on Holy One are more contemporary. And so when I went to Times of Terror, man, my mindset was there's not going to be anything metal on this project, nothing, because I kind of regretted the Holy One project. And I actually, July 31st, the Times of Terror, if you remember the old Emerson, Lake and Palmer albums, like Tarkus, that was one of my first 3 albums. Side 1, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, was one song, just like Brain Salad Surgery. And I didn't know if somebody had done that on guitar. And I said, I want to do a 30-minute song on the guitar, like the old albums. And it was July 31st, man. And I just started the recorder and I just started making up rhythm tracks. And I probably laid down 20 minutes of rhythm tracks, just random rhythm tracks all over the place. And then I went back and I turned it into songs piece by piece in order, what I had done on my dad's birthday. I mean, he had been dead for years. And that's what became that 30-minute song on Times of Terror, the first song. And it's all about the judgment day of the Lord, man. I mean, the judgment of God is hardcore, man. We don't talk about it too much, but man, it's hardcore, ugly, bad.
Yeah, it's
And
probably it's a lot darker. That's what's always interesting to me is that there's a lot of dark stuff in the Bible.
very dark.
Lot darker than, what maybe some more conservative, Christians would like to talk about. It's easy for them to complain about dark themes and music, but I don't know, you read the Bible, it's pretty wild.
If you, I've got the lyric sheets. I think I got it online. If you look at that, read the lyrics, man. Now I took it out of a contemporary English version Bible, but I'm telling you what, man. And I and when I was recording that section in there, it's about 15, 20 minutes in, man. And I'm recording this thing, and I'm doing the vocal track, and I'm just laughing hysterically, man. I'm like, what the crap is that all about? And I think it's Proverbs 1, or I need to go back and find it, man. But it's because you turn your back on me. When your dilemma hits you, I'm gonna laugh at you. Wow. Thanks. And that's what that was about, man. Yes, you will be sad and cry out in pain, going hungry and thirsty, crying out in disdain. You and everyone else will die like flies, your blood and guts spewing out from inside. That's straight out of the Bible.
Yeah.
People don't know them verses, man, but man, the Bible is hardcore, man.
Yeah, that's why I think dark music can be fitting for worship or even just, Christian music in general. I think there's something to it to be explored, I think.
Well, I can tell you this, man. Very, very few people like that project, man. That project was just too harsh.
But
The
it's funny to me
artwork
though,
was pretty harsh too.
because like, they were saying, you made one of the first Doom records and the band Trouble, they also did some Doom metal stuff. And I don't know where they're at now, but I'm pretty sure they were Christians when they started off. So it's interesting to me that like some of the first Doom records are all by like Christians. And I would even lump in that Sabbath album in there as being like a proto Doom album.
Let me disagree with you on that a little bit, man. I did have a
Okay.
Christian upbringing, man, but I was seeking the power of the air. And who's the power of the air? Lucifer.
Right.
So was I serving God? Was I a disciple of Christ, a follower of Christ? No. Did I know about the Bible and know about Christ? Absolutely, man. But I was not a saved Jesus follower. No. I knew about him. And just like the Job's Revenge song, man, we called him the preacher at Southern Plains. He was a little skinny guy, man. And he asked me to read. I was trying to quit smoking. And he bet me, I bet you $20 you can't quit for 3 months. He was just trying to inspire me. I said, okay, I'll take that bet. And I actually quit. And he knew I was trying to quit because I had started coughing up black stuff. But I still didn't stop smoking weed and hash oil and all that stuff, just cigarettes. But he asked me to read those verses that are now Job's revenge. That's what he asked me to read. And I made a song about it. And those words, those are not Job's words. Those are his friends' words. And of course, we know that Job's friends were, God was not happy with them and their counsel.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to, and there's a zillion opinions on that, and only God knows who's right, man. But, I don't understand things, man, because I know that back when I was lost and in the world and doing stupid stuff and should have died 1,000 times, God took care of me and protected me, man. I remember one night we were at Bobby's, man, and I had taken like 7 grams of hash to smoke, and we had weed, and we were drinking liquor and beer and booze, and I was on my full chop drag bike that I drove for 24 years, and I went to leave that place, man, and I had 30 minutes to get home to my trailer, and I pulled out onto the road, and the last thing I remember is I couldn't stay in one lane. I was going from curb to curb in a big like S. And it's the last thing I remember. And I woke up, I didn't know where I was at, didn't know how I got there, and went out, and my bike's in the shed. And I mean, God, man, God's been so good to me, man. And even when we're lost, and even when we're just doing bad things, man, that are completely that He hates, He still protects us.
Yeah.
But then again, and I had this happen, man. I mean, I had just gotten saved, and we were at Southern Plastics, and Don, man, he was a little older than me. He did the day shift, I did the night shift foreman. And we were talking because a little girl, a little 18-year-old girl, her first night out drinking, was on her way home and died. And I remember saying to Don, man, I said, "No, Don, I did that 1,000 times. It just doesn't make sense, man. That little girl, the first time she goes out drinking, she dies. And I've done it 1,000 times." And he said, God's got a plan for you. Well, anyway,
Dang. Yeah, heavy stuff. Um, hey, what happened? You did a tour with Royal Trucks, or actually, I think it was Black Bananas.
Black Bananas. Yeah.
What happened on that tour? You went like you did half of the tour with them, right?
Well, it was supposed to be 5 shows in 5 nights, and they begged me, and oh, Dwayne, anything you want, blah, blah, blah. So I finally said, okay. And when I was driving out there, I realized that the dudes that were going to be playing with me were not really professional musicians. They were good. They were good musicians. But anyway, it kind of hit me. I was talking to a man on the phone, and it kind of hit me. And I got out there, man, and I got out there on a Friday night, and we were going on Saturday night. We were headlining. Jennifer, I think was her name. She was letting me headline.
Oh, nice.
Uh, so anyway, we got out there, and we were at some people's houses to practice. It's Friday night. I get to Austin, and we're going on the next night, and we got one night to rehearse. And we go in there, man, and it just was not working, man. It was really bad, and I walked out, and I went and sat on the couch. And I had gone over there with my whole get up on, man, that I was going to go on stage. I had a short hair. I'm a real estate broker. Back then I was just an agent, but one of my clients did hair and stuff. And I told her they wanted me to do the shows. And I met her at the mall. And I took my sunglasses, and I took one of my old cutout shirts and stuff that I ain't had on years. And I said, if I don't feel good about this, I'm not going to do it. And me and the lady at the store and my client, there was probably 200 wigs in that store, and we all picked out the same one. And they took me back in the back room, and I put on the shirt, and I put on the sunglasses, I put on the wig, and I looked in the mirror, and it was just like looking back in time. I said, okay, I can do this. So when we did that first night of practice, man, I went to that practice in my get up, looking like the old rock and roll animal. and it was just horrible, man. So I walked out. I sat on the couch. I took all the crap off, just me now, and they came in there, man, and I said, this just isn't going well. I said, let's pray. And I don't know if these people prayed or not. I don't think they did from what she said later. So I prayed for the little group. And we went back in there and I said, after we got done praying, it hit me. I said, we can't play this the way I want to play it. Show me the way you've been practicing it. So basically, they played it the way they've been practicing, and I just went with it. And we went on the next night, man, and we got there. I had my 810 Marshall and one of the other bands. It wasn't Jennifer. They had a big Ampeg amp, so I had a double stack that first night in Austin. It was wild. We got done playing, and phone was ringing, and people thinking we need to go to Europe and blah blah blah. Everybody was really excited and everything. So we drove to Houston, which wasn't too bad. It was only about 2 hours, and we got to Houston, man. We get ready to go on, and the band with the amp said, "Oh, Duane, we don't think you should use this amp. You're pretty rough, man. That amp's old. You're going to blow it up." I said, okay. So I just used the 810 Marshall in Houston. Well, the song list is out, and the two guys playing with me, they write on the bottom of the song list, bad time. I'm like, okay, y'all stayed up late partying last night. And they were saying, "Oh, you got to shut it down at 1 o'clock." Well, I was trying. My goal was I was trying to do a 2 disc set with a live DVD and a live CD. That was the whole goal, man. We had 3 cameras going every time. And Adam, he had filmed something for the presidential candidate. I can't remember his name, but he was my film guy. He was a professional, and we were doing. The plan was to get the. That was the whole reason I was doing it, was to get that 2 disc set. So anyway, they're saying, well, you're going to have to shut it down at blah blah blah, and I said, okay. But once I started playing and I was telling stories and stuff, man, the manager wasn't going to shut me down. He let me play as long as I wanted to. So they were getting upset that we were playing more songs. My God, they just wanted to go to bed. It was, I thought both of the shows were really good, man, for what it was. I mean, I thought it went really well. And the music, my guitar playing, man, was way better the second night than the first night. And man, I probably would have been smoking it by the fourth or fifth night. We were supposed to be we were doing New Orleans, then we were going to Atlanta, and then Raleigh, Durham. And there were some people disappointed when I didn't show up in Atlanta and Raleigh, Durham also. But
Okay.
anyway,
I had heard that you had done some preaching before your sets too, and that might have I don't know if that was part of it or not, but
I didn't do no preaching no time.
uh
I was telling stories, man. I mean, just if you look at the videos, the live videos, I mean, I talked
yeah,
a
I've
little
seen
bit
them.
about the song before I play it.
Hey,
But
well,
I didn't do that preaching.
I know I'm not going to keep it too much longer here, but I thought it might be nice if you wouldn't mind closing out in prayer.
Let me tell you one other thing on my mind that I wanted to throw out there.
Yeah, yeah, go for it.
Uh, the Lord saved my life, man, back in January, and I really believe I got a season ahead of me, man. And there's 2 things that I have not done, and I was not in a position to do for the last 18 years. But I just closed on my house, and it funded yesterday morning, and I am out of debt for the first time. And I mean, so there's a liberty to that. I've been a bondage since I got married 18 years ago. I was debt free when I got married, but I got in more debt every year ever since I was married, and I got set free yesterday morning. So I've got some freedom that I have not had. And there's 2 things I really wanted to do in my life that I haven't done. I want to tour, man. I want to tour Europe. I always had a bigger following in Europe than I had here. And I always wanted to tour, and I wanted to have salvation prayer at the end of this concert. And I wanted to pray for healing and see people healed at the end of the concerts. But I don't want to do an every night thing. I'd like to get hosted by a church, some denominations, and stay. We could lead worship at a Spanish congregation. We could lead worship at the American congregation, but then do a hard rock show one night and see people healed and saved. And then if I could get that going, man, maybe make a connection. My biggest dream in life has always been to make a cheap movie, man, and do the soundtrack.
Heck yeah.
And I hope that this new season that I feel like is in front of me, I hope and I pray that those two things have got something to do with it.
Yeah, man. Well, it's interesting times right now. I feel like I don't know, it feels like there's like been a shift over the last few years. And so I'll be praying for you, man, that that happens. That sounds good to me. I think this is the right time with a message like that.
And the movie, man, will be hardcore. It'll appeal to all people, man, because it will be extreme hardcore.
Well, you have a name for it yet?
The Contender.
You got like a script already, or where's it at in stages?
It's just in my head, man. I've been carrying it around for about 25 years.
Time to get that out.
Love to do it, man, but of course I don't have the knowledge to do it. It would have to be somebody that had the knowledge and the equipment and the funds to pull it off, man. But it would be an awesome experience. It'd be like my final dream come true that I'd love to do before I die. But if the Lord wants me to do it, it'll happen. God will bring that person to my life that can make it happen. Because I can't do it, man. I don't have the knowledge, I don't have the money, and I don't have the experience.
Hmm.
But I do have the creativity, and I do have it in my mind. And with the right person, man, it could really be awesome.
Yeah, you got anything written up about it?
Nah, nothing, nothing written up at all. It's just in my head.
You should write up like a quick, like one page about what you're trying to do here. I'm there's a few folks I know I'm not saying this would do anything, but there's a few folks I know in music, and I'm like, well, maybe I could, maybe make some connections. You can try and toss some ideas. I don't know. Just thinking
That
out loud.
would be incredible, man. That would be incredible. It's kind of weird the way you popped in my life last week.
Yeah.
What? Where did you find me at?
I had heard your name before, and I never had listened. And then there's a podcast I really like, uh, called Contain, and the guy who runs that was talking about your music because he had Jennifer on there because they're friends. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna check this out. And like right away, I was like, this is incredible. Like this is right up my alley.
What, Jennifer
Uh,
Herrera from Black
yeah,
Bananas?
yeah.
What did she have to say about me?
Well, they just talked about how, just
She grabbed me, man.
huh?
She grabbed me. They were in like the waiting room before we were in Houston, man. And I walked outside. There was a bunch of people outside. I said, man, what are y'all all doing out here, man? We're waiting on the war. I said, okay. And I walked in, man, and Jennifer was her band in like this little lounge area. And I walked in, man, and I was just talking, and she just comes up to me and grabs me and kisses me. I didn't kiss her back, but she did. I don't know. I said, okay.
Yeah, I've never met her. I'm just yeah, but she seems like an interesting character. But
She's an interesting character for sure, man.
yeah, but it was her interview on this podcast is where I found you. And then I had been doing my podcast off and on, and I was like, well, man, I gotta reach out and see if I can get you on because that'd just be an awesome, it'd be awesome to hear your story.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate it, man. And if you know anybody, man, that would be interested in making a hardcore Christian music, Christian movie with hardcore music, put me in contact with them, and that would be incredible. Or if you know anybody, and I don't know how to find to get this Christian tour thing going, man, it would have to be a church denomination that's okay with heavy music, whatever that is, that had a lot of churches in Europe.
Yeah, there's a heavy metal church in I think it's in Sweden or something. Uh I can't remember the name of it. Gosh, I'm so bad at remembering names on the fly like this, but
Me too, man.
But it's like a bunch of like
Guess what? It
rap
doesn't
bands.
get better, man. It gets worse.
That's the bad thing is I'm not even that old yet, and I like
You're
can't
not
really
that
do
old yet.
anything.
You don't have no excuse. But my daughter's 17, man, and she does the same thing.
It's just it's the phones, I think. Yeah, man, you should write up a quick thing about what you're trying to do. I can think about it and shoot some emails out to some folks and see, we can put you in touch.
Let me see what I can do on that, man. My daughter is really trying. I think she's trying to encourage me
I'm
to,
trying to
to
encourage you.
to
You
be
should do it.
proactive to do this thing. And I mean, I really believe, man, God gave me another season, man. And He wouldn't have gave me another season if He didn't have me something for me to do.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you got to do the artwork for this next album and tour for this upcoming season for you. We got to get some that artwork's incredible.
But thanks, man. It was so funny, man, because the first one was Holy One, and man, there was this talented artist at my church, and I was trying to get her to paint it for me. Just like when I did the Don't Die Lost project, there's all these talented people at my church, man. I'm like, wow, this is going to be great. And I remember I had two girls come over, great singers, and we're in there for 2 hours, and it sounds like crap. And finally, she looks at me and says, Dwayne, it just doesn't sound right when we do it. We think the Lord wants you to do it. I ended up playing all the instruments on Don't Die Lost and doing all the backup vocals. And I mean, man, we had killer keyboards. We had one of the best drummers you ever want to hear. And I ended up playing everything. you know, pretty funny.
It's
Oh, it
cool.
was funny. That's what I was going to say, though, man, is I'm trying to get this artist to do the cover, man, because I'm about done with the project. I'm ready to release almost, and nobody will paint it for me. And I'm driving to my mother's birthday dinner at a Mexican restaurant. And the Lord speaks to me and says, you about done with the project? Yeah. So I'm excited. I said, who's going to paint it? And the Lord says, you are. And I get to the dinner, man, and in front of everybody, I said, yeah, the Lord's talking to me on the way over here. I'm about done with my new project. I said, guess who's going to paint the cover? And they're all looking at me, who? I said, I am. You should have seen the looks on their face. You're not a painter. Oh man, funny stuff. God's got a sense of humor.
Yeah, no, I love it, dude. Yeah, man. Well, you still up for you want to close this out in prayer?
I can do it, man.
All right, let's do it.
All right. Lord, we love you and we praise you, Lord, and we thank you that you're always with us, and we thank you that you're always taking care of us. You're always helping us. You're always guiding us. You are always working, and you're so faithful to us, Lord, even when we don't deserve it, Lord. And Lord, I know that there's tons of people out there that are in this heavy music that we love, and they're lost. And Lord, just help them. Help them just like you helped me, Lord, and protect them while they're crazy. Protect them. Make sure that the enemy doesn't take them out, Lord, and just preserve them for their day of salvation, Lord, and help them find their way. Bring people in their lives, Lord, that can help them find their way, Lord. And we just pray for everyone's salvation that's listening to us, Lord. And we know that you can do it, Holy Spirit. We know that you're the one that draws us to repentance, Lord, and we trust you to do the work, Lord. And build the kingdom, Lord. Use us both to build the kingdom, Lord. Use our ministries, Lord, and help us find our way to bear the most fruit in this world, Lord, because the world's lost. And the world needs the light and needs the salt, Lord. And we're instruments in your hands, Lord. So help us, Lord. Help us find our way, Lord. In Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Hey, thanks again, man. I really appreciate it. I really enjoyed hearing all that. Thank you for sharing all those stories. I really do appreciate it.
All right, brother.
Yeah, well, you got my email, so if you want to write something up, just on what you're trying to do here, that'd be great.
Señor mi Dios, al contemplar los cielos, el firmamento y las estrellas mil, los potentes truenos y el murmurar del claro manantial. Mi alma canta, mi Señor y Dios, grande eres tú, grande eres tú, grande